Last week, I explored how Al-Kindi broke all known methods of encryption at the time. This week, we will explore how one man sought to toughen data security and encryption. That man's name was Leon Battista Alberti. Leon Battista Alberti came from a wealthy family. He was the son of an Italian noble who made their money in banking and commerce. Leon himself took an early interest in mathematics, perhaps explaining his interest in cryptology. However, he did admit to a friend at one point that cryptology was more of a passing interest. But his interests were far broader than just mathematics. He was involved in poetry, linguistics, law, in which he held a degree, and architecture. He was even appointed as an architectural advisor to Pope Nicholas V in 1447. Leon Alberti was a Renaissance man, literally. Some modern scholars have compared him to Leonardo da Vinci. Like da Vinci, Leon Alberti loved to invent and explore, pushing the boundaries of math and science even further. By far, one of his most famous inventions was the formula, or as it has come to be known today, the cipher disk. Now this cipher disk, or rather the one that Alberti invented, was the first mechanical device to ever encrypt a language. Prior to the cipher disk invention, the world of secure communication was time-consuming and had many problems. For one thing, in order for the sender and receiver to effectively communicate securely, they both had to know how the encryption and decryption process worked. This often involved carrying compromising documents that explained how the encryption worked, right alongside the encoded message. Well, this is an obvious flaw. The cipher disk was smaller, much smaller than mine. I made this larger so I could demonstrate it easier. And it could even be carried right alongside the message it coded. Even if the cipher disk and that message were both captured or lost, then the cipher disk would still not reveal that hidden coded message. This invention was so simple, yet so powerful. The initial cipher disk would have been composed of two, disks. Here's my cipher disk. And like I said, mine is a little bit larger, but it works for demonstration. The cipher disk, like I said, would be composed of two disks, the initial cipher disk, the larger one and the smaller one. This smaller one rotates while the larger one remains stationary. Here's how this cipher disk works. As you can see, the alphabet is printed on both disks. However, on the smaller disk, the alphabet is all mixed up and used for the encode. That's what adds some complexity to your final code. The encoder would start the process by choosing an index letter. For simplicity today, I'm going to choose the letter A. So the encoder would start by aligning the index letter on the inner wheel with the same letter on the outside wheel. So I'm going to go ahead and align the letter A. Now it's as simple as substitution. You'll find the letter on this side and replace it with the letter on the inner circle. Hey, this cipher disk, boy, that does look like another way to substitute letters. I watched last week's video. Didn't Al-Kindi defeat that method of encryption hundreds of years before this disk was even invented? You know what? You're right. The cipher disk does use substitution encryption. Now I was going to say a few things about that. Yeah, what's that? Yep, there's actually a few reasons that make the cipher disk secure. Well, I don't know how you can make this secure. Yep, there's actually 4. Now I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to look at my notes real quick. 1, although Al-Kindi's method was old, like you mentioned, it wasn't widely known at the time. 2, the cipher disk was often used for quick encryption. Really? If the message was intercepted, then it could be broken. However, hopefully by the time the enemy intercepted the message, determined which method the encryption was used, and then deciphered the message would have already served its purpose. 3, the coder could change the index letter, and by a secret sign, the decoder would recognize and know that the index letter was changed. This would now defeat any frequency analysis attempts. Yeah. Fourth and finally, a third disk. And if you look at my disk does have a third. A third disk could be added, converting the letters into numbers or symbols. This would further scramble the message and further complicate it. Another disk of symbols could also be added, maybe even a fourth disk. The message could now be completely obscured and become extremely difficult to crack. Well, I guess somehow you did it. You made it secure. The cipher disk, that sounds secure. Well, that was kind of strange. And where was I? Oh yes, the cipher disk. I prepared an example of how the cipher disk worked, but you know what? I think a desk would be helpful. All right, now this is easier. I will be encrypting this sentence. This sentence is encrypted using the cipher disk. Now, my first encryption here, we're going to do 2 because I have 3 wheels. So the first one's going to be a simple substitution. First, I'm going to select A as my index. So I'm going to grab my cipher disk. And if you remember from earlier, I already selected A as my cipher. So I'm going to line A up on the outer disk with A on the inner disk. All right, now it's just as simple as substituting. So I'm going to start with the letter T. So I'm going to find T on the outer disk, which corresponds to Y. So I'll enter a Y. The second letter, is H. So we're going to find it corresponds to B. So we're going to write down B. Now, the third letter is I. So I'm going to find I on here. That corresponds to Z. So I'm going to put down Z. And then S, which corresponds to V. So there's our first word. I'm going to go ahead and finish the cipher. All right, I have finished our first cipher. Now you'll be able to see that it looks much more complex. These are the exact same words coded using my cipher disk with that index letter A. All right, so now we're going to complicate the text a bit by using this third wheel. I said I would mention this. If you look on my cipher disk, I have a third wheel that's in the middle. This has numbers. So cipher disk could use numbers, it could use symbols, either works, or simply another set of letters. So we're going to use this disk. I'm going to select another cipher, or another index, We're going to align 1, that's going to be my index, with A. So I'm going to find A on here. A is our first index, and 1 will be our second index. So we're going to turn the wheel until we end up at 1. Now that's our second index. Now it's substitution again. I'm going to take the letters from my last result, my last cipher right here, and substitute them on for the number disk. All right, so I'm going to carry out that substitution. So our first letter here is Y. So we're going to find Y on here, and it corresponds to 20. So we're going to put the number 20 down. Now our next one is B. So we're going to find B. That is 8. And Z. And it might be a little bit more difficult to find because they're no longer in alphabetical order because that second alphabet is all scrambled up. Fourth one is V. All right, I'm going to go complete this cipher. All right, and here is the result of our last cipher. This is the result of our last cipher, and that is our new coded text. Now, the message above that I wrote down here may not all be all that secure. For one, I only used one index. I never changed the index. In both ciphers, I could have changed the index multiple times. And I aligned our first index with our second index. If I had done those differently, it could have been a whole lot more secure. Back to the couch. The cipher disk was originally invented for use with the Latin language. However, its simplicity allows it to be applied to nearly any language. And although the device was invented in 1467 or thereabouts, it experienced a resurgence during the Civil War and the Spanish-American War in the mid-1800s and the early 1900s. During the Civil War, both the Confederate States of America and the United States issued cipher disks to their troops. Now, the cipher disks they had were smaller and metal, and of course they had the 2 disks that the original one had. But they were used for soldiers to quickly communicate and encode documents and even signals sent from tower to tower that kept the enemy from learning important communication. Now, those cipher disks that were issued by the CSA during the Civil War are now incredibly rare. There are only 5 known to exist in the world. 2 are being held by private collectors. 1 is held by the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C., and 2 are on display in the Museum of the Confederacy in Richmond, Virginia. I've spent enough time over the past few videos and few weeks hounding and pounding the importance of cybersecurity, so I won't fill this video with it yet again. However, if you missed those videos or still don't understand the importance of cybersecurity, I encourage you to check out the 2 videos I mentioned. One, the Roman scale, that was a few weeks ago, and last week's video on how Al-Kindi broke code. But here's the takeaway lesson. This is what I want you to remember. Our technology must be secured. Our computers today, your phones, tablets, laptops, even the technology that builds the internet, would not be the powerful daily tools that we know today without security. What the cipher disk illustrates is a worldwide, multi-generational understanding of the importance of security. Well, the cipher disk is a powerful tool. It was used to secure information and used by important diplomats, militaries, and others. The cipher disk is the 6th major milestone in the history of computing. And there you have it, folks. Another video down. Our 6th major milestone in the history of computing. All right, well, I'm not sure how this video is going to turn out. I, of course, haven't edited it yet, but I've been trying to do some fun things and learn some new video skills. What did you guys think? The cipher disk, as I'm sure you know now, is an important, powerful tool. It requires no electricity and is very simple. I even made mine at home. You could do the same. To make this easier for you, I have made a template that's available to download on my website. All you have to do is download the template, cut out the disks, and follow the instructions. Now, like mine, you may want to glue the disk to a piece of cardboard. This will make it a lot more sturdy. You can find that link to that template in the description down below. All right, guys, well, before I let you go, as a reminder, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe. I will be releasing a new video every single Saturday on the history of computing. And who knows, we might expand into other aspects of technology. I also encourage you and invite you to follow me on social media. I'm active daily on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Again, links down below. If you do engage on social media, please use the hashtag TechIsATool. Again, I welcome your feedback. I want to get better and hear from you and some of your technology stories as well. Finally, remember, each week I will write a blog version of the week's video. That is available in the description as well down below. All right, well, that's it for this week, guys. Next week, we're going to talk about an important word. Can't wait. See you then. Bye.